Watching this Japanese TV show right now has me thinking a little bit about how it was that I learned how to talk like this in English. Because usually when I meet new people, I don't really sound the way that I do on camera. It's generally very difficult for me to talk to new people on a consistent basis with the same kind of intonation that I do. Usually the reason I can open up to people and sound somewhat normal or even exciting when I get excited about a topic is because I've known that person. I've spoke to that person in text chat for so long, and I know that they understand me and my channel. But when it comes to people who I don't expect to understand me, or to understand what it is that I'm saying, the fact that that conflict is there muddies the waters a bit. It makes it all a bit more difficult to handle. So I don't like meeting new people who I feel like I have problems with or might have problems with, where I have to explain myself and have all of these weird interests that people don't understand, have all these weird ways of thinking that need to be justified in a normal social context. At that point, you might as well just pretend to be someone else or just not talk at all. And I don't want to do either of those things. So I end up just not speaking to the people in the first place. And with the people that I know online, I'm really grateful for them because I feel like they see me and they see this guy who, speaks really loudly, makes a lot of jokes, has a lot of things to say. But that's not how I am with the majority of people. I can extend my hand and be helpful in certain situations just with strangers. I've done that many times, but that's because I know I'm going to be accepted for doing that. Now, with most people, I don't feel like I'm going to be. And it makes me really scared. It makes me really scared to interact with those people because of that. Um, but watching this TV show right now and thinking about this, what it is that I'm doing with this YouTube channel, it's brought a few thoughts in my mind because one of my friends, Wikijipo, he was telling me a week or two ago that, you speak with so much intonation and how did you learn how to talk when you spent most of your time alone throughout your life? You spend most of it in your room. How did you learn how to do that? How did you have the confidence to do that? The thing was is that I didn't really have the confidence to do that from the beginning. My first videos were me barely speaking. They were me like stumbling over my words constantly and sounding very, very nervous. And a lot of those videos at the time I would take down, or if I didn't take them down, I would feel very, very ashamed of what it was that I was doing. Even when I got positive reactions for them, I felt super scared every time I uploaded a video. And so, well, the reason I can speak like this is just because I practiced doing it so many times, and I grew up watching YouTube, so I was constantly learning how to speak from watching other people and then trying to apply it on my own channel. And then I used those skills to speak to other people through the internet, on Discord and so on. But only after I knew those people for some time. If I just show up in most VCs where I don't know the people, it's going to be a high stress environment. I might be able to fake my way through it to pretend like I know what I'm doing, but I really don't. And this right here is a product of all of this around me. It's a product of the fact that I'm sitting in here alone, and if the video doesn't go well, I can get rid of it. And I've had a lot of time practicing doing this. I've looked up to, listened to for hours upon hours every day, people who do this. But I didn't have those hours at practicing speech in real life, which is why I didn't really know how to speak super well. Most of my time as a kid was spent without speaking to most of my immediate family, even though I loved talking, I developed a speaking ability from a young age. Seldom did I use it because I just didn't grow up in an environment where I was encouraged to do a lot of speaking with my family members. I was more so encouraged to stay in my room. And so I kind of developed this mentality of not speaking as much as I would like to. And over time, when I got into early middle school, late elementary school, I barely spoke, you know? And at that point, my social anxiety was so bad that I just didn't know how to interact with people. I would make weird, just terrible mistakes, and I would get so embarrassed that I wouldn't want to talk to those people again because I would be so afraid of them recognizing me for the mistakes that I made instead of, for the positive qualities that I wanted to present. And the reason I can do this right now is because, unlike with those social experiences where I ended up just running away over time, I had time to practice and hone this skill. But it is, fundamentally speaking, this skill. It's not that skill out there, it's this one. So I know how to speak to you guys. I know how to, if I meet you IRL, I know how to speak to you in that context. But even then, I'm a little bit more quiet than I would be online because I don't really know how IRL talking works. I'm just carrying over the knowledge that I have from going on Discord for so long and doing YouTube videos for so long. And going on Discord was at first informed by this, is that I was terrified every time I went into a Discord call for the longest time. But I learned how to do them because I had the foundation from learning how to talk from here. But I just straight up wouldn't have gone into those calls if it wasn't for the fact that YouTube gave me friends who I felt I could be understood around and who weren't going to judge me for being this way. And so that was a good opener. But I learned how to talk in the first place from this. And I wonder what I would be like if I learned how to talk, just from normal social interaction, just from doing things the way that everyone else did. But in the context of Japanese, like when I'm looking at, this show here, and I'm listening to the words, taking in the speech, I wonder if what I'm doing here isn't so different. That I may be learning from a bit of an unconventional method, kind of simulating the experience of being in Japan inside of my own home. But it isn't so different than how I learned to speak English effectively, how I learned to speak with intonation and use weirder, odder words from reading and hearing them from others in the interaction that I didn't get otherwise. It was through experiencing media and creating my own media. So, looking at my study of Japanese, or my study of French, or anything like that, and putting it into that context, into the fact that the way I learned how to speak in my own native tongue properly and with confidence was through this very abstract means of just practicing at it by myself without anyone else. And I compare it to how I'm doing the same thing with Japanese, and I don't see too much of a difference beyond the fact that one of them, I grew up as a baby hearing it, and now I'm doing that process of being a baby learning a language again, but as more or less an adult. I don't know. I feel like I've been going through the world or just going through these very basic functions in a heavily unconventional way, a way that most people don't do them. And the advice that I would give to anyone who is learning how to talk or learning how to, you know, project their voice, speak with more intonation, speak with more character, or to just use bigger, better words on a faster basis, get the sentences out more effectively, quicker, I would just say to do this. Make hours and hours of videos. I have over 1,000 YouTube videos on this platform, most of them accumulated in the last 2.5 years. There's a reason for that. It's because I cared about what I was doing and I just practiced at it constantly. If you practice at anything constantly, you're going to get good at it. So if you're not particularly good at talking and you're too afraid to interact right away, what I would recommend is just speak on YouTube all the time. And if you're afraid of posting the videos, then just don't post them at first. Or bite the bullet and post them and feel nervous for the fact that you did post them. And eventually, when you meet people who you feel like will understand you and aren't going to be shitty to you just because you're a bit different, then speak to them on VC. Go on VCs all the time and eventually get good at talking because of that. I'm still not like an IRL whiz, I'm not going around fucking every woman and knowing how to speak to normies and stuff because I don't know how to speak to normies. My area of focus has never been to speak to normies because I don't care. Why would I teach myself how to do something like that when I don't care? The thing that I did care about was being able to speak on this platform and being able to have meaningful interactions with people who I can relate to and who understand where it is that I'm coming from. I don't know. I feel like I've been going about everything backwards for most of my life. Like, I was homeschooled and I didn't do most of my work. And so the year that I caught up was 1 year, or rather a few months, before I was held back into fifth grade, where I was just trying to catch up as much as possible before I got there for years and years of schooling that I had basically ignored. The way that I learned to read wasn't to learn how the words were sounded out. I just saw the words so many times until eventually I just recognized what they were. I heard them read to me so many times, or I had seen them so many times that they just made sense in context. If I didn't know a word, I knew the words around it, and so I could just figure it out. I didn't learn how to sound them out the way that everyone else did. I didn't learn by the traditional methods. I just used what I had in my house and tried to pick up the pieces to the best of my ability, even though I didn't really have the ability to mend a perfect puzzle. I tried to create something that was at least visible, but not perfect. I think that's kind of been the story of my life, is just scooting by with as much of as much of the resources as I have. I was never really given everything I could possibly need to excel in those given fields because I was quite literally forced um, into a home where I didn't have the effective tools to learn. And so I just kind of fell into it, just kind of scooted by with as little effort as possible. But it ultimately led to me in ninth grade leaving school because I was failing all my classes and I had enough. I'd left school a few other times. I wasn't in public school formally until I was 12 and a half, but in eighth grade I left because I was getting into so many fights and I just couldn't interact with people. I just couldn't get along with them. And in ninth grade, I had the same feeling that I hated talking to everyone there, couldn't get along with them, and I was just so sad doing my schoolwork. I felt bored and in pain by doing it. And so I was just failing. I would sleep in the class because I couldn't keep a consistent sleep schedule, which is still something I can't do. It's why I'm awake at 4:27 a.m. when I was supposed to be waking up at 7 a.m. every single day with no excuses, as I said in that video. But as time and time again has shown, no matter what methods I use to change my sleep schedule, it's been all for naught. I've ended up being stuck here, awake, not able to sleep as per usual. Same was the case every time I went to school. I would always come in with only a few hours of sleep. I would have to wake up to go to the bus as soon as I had gotten to sleep. And so I would just be like that. If not falling asleep in class for a few hours, or rather for 30 minutes, and then in the next class for another 30 minutes, then just being awake. Just being awake with the pain of not having had enough sleep. And then going to sleep that day and then having to experience the same thing. It's really difficult to live like this because I only ever get to sleep at the absolute brink of exhaustion. I can't sleep on a normal sleep schedule. I've tried every possible thing that I can. That's not traditional. It's not the traditional way of doing things, but I've somehow scooted by in life, barely, you know, living that way. It's the same with language, it's the same with reading. I've always done it in these extremely weird and off kilter, unorthodox ways. Duh. Maybe that's just how I do things. I don't know.